Heller.
Mr. Chairman, thank you for holding this hearing. I appreciate the fact that the first hearing that we have has to do with protecting the Internet from the FCC, from bureaucrats, and I certainly appreciate moving forward on this particular piece of legislation. Hopefully we can come to a consensus. I want to thank all of you for being here. Your testimony has been good and very informative, so I certainly do appreciate all that you're saying. I want to go back to the previous comments made by my friend across the aisle, and he talked about this phone. I guess my question, Mr. McDowell, would this phone exist if the FCC had regulated the Internet 10 years ago?
Probably not, but I do want to agree with something that Senator Markey said, which is this innovation came about.
Yeah, please feel free to respond.
It came about as a result of laws that were passed years ago, and that the marketplace is burgeoning because of laws passed years ago. If this committee wants to restate that in order to give the FCC enforcement authority there, then that's the will of Congress. But we have the wonderful Internet we have today because of the existing legal environment.
Correct. Ms. Baker, do you have any comments?
I agree. I mean, the innovation has been allowed to explode in the mobile broadband space because it's not, Congress explicitly chose a non-regulatory path for it.
Now, you served on the FCC. Both of you served on the FCC. And in your comments, Mr. McDowell, you talked about litigation. What's your expectation of this going to the courts if the FCC moves forward on their order?
I think a Title II order will definitely go to court. I think it'll be overturned. And by the way, I'm on record. I voted against 2 other net neutrality orders, in part because I thought nothing was wrong that needed fixing, but also because the FCC just didn't have the legal authority to do what it did. So the Section 332 problems, as Commissioner Baker pointed out, I think are real problems on appeal, but also this trying to classify yet massively forbear at the same time is going to look arbitrary and capricious, more like picking political friends rather than having any principled regulation.
With your experience on the FCC, could you estimate how long it would take for litigation like this to go through?
Well, the last order from 2010 took 37 months, and there was a lot of uncertainty in the interim.
Yeah, that's what I was going to ask you. Regulatory uncertainty at this point. What impact would that have on the industry, Ms. Baker?
We have several rural carriers in particular who are very insecure and have already pulled back on some of their investments because they don't know that they can get, they don't know what advanced services they can do because they don't know how much money they're going to have to spend on lawyers. So it's going to have significant slowing. To what extent, we don't know. Mobile broadband has never been regulated by Title II, so we don't know.
Have you had an opportunity to take a look at the legislative text that the chairman is proposing?
Yes, I think it's a very good start. We are very pleased with the reasonable network management provision, that it has some technical parameters to it. There are clearly some issues that we need to have more discussion about, but we are very pleased with the fact that the only way for this industry to have clarity is for Congress to act. The certainty we need happens in this room.
So you would argue that it makes more sense
Absolutely.
for Congress to act as opposed to going through a regulatory scheme?
Yes.
This is the reason I make this point. That if left up to the FCC alone to act, I do believe this will be challenged in court. Obviously, the level of uncertainty that we'd see in the industry for however many months, whether it's 37 months or beyond. And I think there's a pretty good chance the FCC won't win. So what does it do to the industry? And I would argue that this exercise has been all for nothing. We have an opportunity, and I take a look at what the chairman has done in his particular piece of legislation. Frankly, it's 70% of what the other side of the aisle wants. Prohibited blocking, prohibiting throttling, prohibiting paid pre-authorization, requiring transparencies. These are everything the other side wants. And I guess, Mr. Chairman, what I don't understand is if they get 70% of what they want, why would they want to risk it? I guess being from Nevada, we know a good bet when we see one. And I think this is a good bet. I really do think this is a good bet. Senator, I just don't understand.
May I, Senator? Thank you. I am a longtime proponent of net neutrality. I've been doing this for a dozen years, and I think 2 things. One is, first of all, we're willing to work with Congress for sure. I don't think that's exclusive of the FCC's process. They have an existing statute that they can work with, and they are working with, and should be applauded. But that doesn't preclude us from working together. My testimony was very much designed to work with this committee to develop a strong bill that what you want to accomplish. But I think a little bit too much credit is being given to the forbearance decisions the Commission made a decade ago. frankly, the network operators have been working under a period of détente where they've been on their best behavior. They've not been doing the bad things that they want to do. They've not been engaged in the blocking and the paid prioritization, principally because they're concerned about FCC coming down on them or Congress coming down on them. So I wouldn't want to give too much credit to the fact that we've been in this forbearance position for a dozen years, but I'm happy to work with you on legislation.
And I appreciate that, because that's what I want. That's what I want the other side to come with us, work with us, get something done. I just have one more question, Mr. Chairman, if you'll work with me on this. Mr. Kimmelman, if this FCC order wasn't prepared and moving forward based on what the chairman has introduced with his legislative text, would you vote for it? Would you support it? If the FCC order...
Senator, I wish I had a vote. I think it's commendable. I think by taking away some of the fundamental powers of enforcement, I would still be extremely worried even if the FCC were doing nothing. Because even if the FCC is doing nothing, I think Mr. Meisner is absolutely right. There is an air of sense that somewhere between information services and Title II, this industry has to behave, and it has been doing so. And I think that lack of predictability is an uncertainty that has actually driven a huge amount of investment while litigation is going on, while there's a lot of problems. I would want to make, and that's with an understanding the FCC has this residual authority. It's like a hammer that they could use. So I would want to preserve some kind of a hammer or some kind of a flexibility to make sure that you're forward-looking. But I think it's a great start, Mr. Chairman and Senator Heller. I think we can work on things, but there are some very big issues that need to be worked out.
Okay, Mr. Chairman, thank you. Thanks for proposing this legislation. I want to get both sides to work together so that we can solve this problem.
Thank you, Senator Heller.